Alright, this is the long-awaited video of how I make my chili. Now, everything I do is going to be pretty customizable here. You don't have to do it exactly like I'm doing it. I'm not your grandma, and this ain't no family heirloom recipe. So, I'm just going to go over some ingredients real quick that you do want to use for sure. I personally don't like chili meat, for starters. You know, a lot of this stuff's subjective. You know, switch things out and take away or put in things the way you like them. It's your chili. Do what you want with it. But for starters, I don't like chili grind. I'm just going to start cutting this large white onion while I'm talking to y'all. But yeah, chili grind is, it's essentially hamburger meat. It's just coarser. It's, they use a much bigger die or hole in the plate. It's not a fine grind hamburger like I just use hamburger meat. I don't really care for the chili grind. A lot of times I'm feeding people at work and they're eating with a plastic spoon anyway, you know. I just personally don't like chili grind. If you like that, you like it coarser, go to town, use chili grind. One of the things I do that I do recommend that I think kind of makes my chili is I do 2 parts ground beef, 1 part breakfast sausage. Now you can use Owens or whatever you have available to you, but if you have a local butcher shop, like I would recommend using a fresh market-made breakfast sausage. It doesn't have all the preservatives and crap in it. But that's what I use. I make a breakfast sausage in-house. It's kind of mildly seasoned. I use it a lot to cook with. I put it in meatloaf and meatballs and my chili, things of that nature. But just a nice, fresh-made breakfast sausage. Matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and throw that in the skillet I have hot right now while I'm chopping this onion. So, 2 parts beef, 1 part breakfast sausage. In other words, I use 2 pounds ground beef, 1 pound breakfast sausage. Again, you could switch it up however you like. If you don't eat pork or you don't want the breakfast sausage, just do all beef. Again, I can't stress enough, all this stuff is completely customizable. Matter of fact, I may not make the same pot of chili twice. I tweak things and take away and add things almost every time I cook any dish. It's not always the same. I'm constantly innovating, changing. Just do it however you like it. But I also, if you see here beside me, I have some ribeye ends. That's a thing we do at our meat market where instead of, you know, grinding or wasting the little wedged piece where we square up the ribeye, and it's going to be kind of like a little doorstop steak where it might be thicker at one end or thinner at another end. I had a bunch of those on hand. I keep them in the fridge for like just a quick meal for the boy whenever he comes home from school. It's something he can just throw in a skillet with a couple of eggs. I normally don't add cubed beef. I know a lot of people do. Like you can do all ground meat, all chili meat, or you know, you can do cubed beef, whether it be chuck roast or whatever. I just happen to have this on hand. As you can see, there's nothing wrong with it. Beef discolors, especially when it's, you know, we don't do anything to our beef. It's all natural, so it's going to discolor and turn kind of brownish as it sits. So I needed to use those up so they didn't go to waste. So, you know, I happen to be making a pot of chili. So today I'm going to add some cubed up ribeye ends. Like I said, I don't normally do that. I usually just use ground meat and breakfast sausage. But I had those, so I figured what the heck. Throw these onions in here real quick. Extremely large onion. I'm going to save some of this fresh to serve And then, you know, the next day or day after, we might have Frito chili cheese pie or chili cheese hot dogs. Now, when I make chili, my son likes it really, really hot. The spicier, the better. You can't hurt this boy with spice. So I always make one big pot and then a smaller pot to the side where I add all the heat, because my wife doesn't want all the spice. You know, she wants to be able to taste the flavor and not get burnt up. So for his pot, I have a couple serrano peppers, jalapeno peppers, whatever I have on hand. Like I said, the spicier the better. That's how he likes it. If you have access to it, beef marrow bone or any kind of beef bone, that's good to add. And like this right here is just one beef rib off of like a prime rib roast, or comes off the ribeye. I add that bone for flavor. And I've got almost 2 pounds of bacon burger. That's something, again, we make at our shop that has basically really lean beef and then bacon added. The bacon is your fat content of the beef. I'm using Ballows. This may not be available to you in your area. I think it's more of a local Texas thing. This is a Texas chili, so, but just whatever's available to you or whatever you like. That doesn't really matter. I found that a lot of chili seasonings have usually crappy instructions, honestly. Like Chili Willie's what I've used for years. I still have a couple shakers left. They still sell it online, but we don't carry it at our store anymore. But Chili Willy is a great seasoning, but it has really poor instructions. For example, the directions are 1 pound of lean chili meat, add 3 tablespoons of Chili Willy, stir well, add enough water to cover meat, simmer until meat is tender. Add red pepper or beans if desired before serving. Those are crappy instructions. You're going to have a watery soup of a chili if you do that. But it's a great seasoning, just really bad instructions. So to offset that watery, soupy like that you're going to end up with, I use Rotel. And instead of adding water, I actually use chicken broth or beef broth, whatever you have on hand. It doesn't really matter. You're not going to be able to tell the difference. For us, I'm using chicken broth in our main pot of chili in the place of water. I do this with a lot of stuff I cook. Instead of using water, I add broth. If you're worried about it being too salty, then use a lower sodium broth where you get the flavor but not all the salt. Now, in my son's chili, I found they just started making spicy beef broth. So I grabbed that for him. I'm using Rotel chili fixins in our pot, but in his pot, they have a new extra hot Rotel with ghost peppers. Doesn't have to be Rotel, just diced tomatoes. If you don't want all the tomatoes in there, don't add them at all. But you could also use tomato sauce while you're cooking. I normally don't go that route. I let my stuff simmer and cook until it's almost done, and then I add tomato paste at the end to thicken it. And I like these really small cans because I can throw in a can and, you know, let it break down and do its thing, thickening. If it's not thick enough, I can add another can since they're so small. I also add a bay leaf while it's simmering. And of course, black pepper. I prefer a coarse pepper on just about everything. Use fine grind, whatever you have on hand. The ground white pepper, I also add a little bit of that. But go ahead and add this hamburger meat too while I'm talking. It's pretty much all of my ingredients. Like I said, dice up an onion. If you don't like onion, don't add the onion. And I normally don't do the cubed beef, like I said, but I don't want this stuff to go to waste, and I don't really want to freeze it, so I'm going to cube this up kind of small and throw it in. Now, I usually just let it simmer. You can get chili done pretty quick, especially if you're not adding the cubed beef. This pot's going to take more time than usual because you've got to let the beef, you know, you want to cover it and simmer it until the beef gets tender. But normally, if you're just using hamburger meat and the breakfast sausage, you just brown that breakfast sausage and hamburger meat first with the onion, of course. That's what I got going over here. I'll make the main pot first. Once it gets kind of all the ingredients combined the way I want it, then I'll move some over to his pot. While that's happening, I'll have the pepper and the onion kind of breaking down, bringing all that hot pepper oil out, you know, so I can get his as hot as he likes it. And then I'll transfer over some of the chili to his pot. But basically, you just brown this up. Whenever it gets good and browned, add in your seasoning, your broth, your Rotel, tomato sauce if you're doing tomato sauce. I normally don't use the tomato sauce. I use the tomato paste kind of like I'm kind of reiterating a lot of things. I know I'm trying to break all this down as simply as I can while I'm cutting this stuff up. But I just like how I have more control with the paste. I can control the consistency or the thickness of it better. Where I can't really do that with sauce. Kind of when you put it in there, it's thinner usually. It'll thicken as it cooks and as it cools down, but the tomato paste, I don't know. Again, a lot of this stuff is just use whatever you have on hand is more or less the best route to take. Like, doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be the same every time, but once I get it simmering good and everything, all the ingredients added, I'll throw in that beef bone so it can be breaking down all the marrow and collagen from that. Just a little added flavor. If you don't have a good seasoning you like, you could always just use chili powder, garlic powder, onion powder. Kind of just add it to taste as you go about it until it gets to your liking. Again, I know this might freak some people out. You see some discoloration on this steak. I've been a butcher for 20 years. That's natural. If you actually want to see that, if you have any kind of beef that just stays red forever, that means they've injected some kind of preservative or coloring to it that's not natural. So don't fret if you see any discoloration on your steak. Beef actually tends to smell kind of buttery as it ages. It'll smell like butter. But you'll know when it gets to the point of too aged where you don't want to use it. You know, just go off that good saying, if in doubt, throw it out. It's not worth getting anybody sick. But if it gets really green and starts kind of having a stickiness to it, then it might be a little too far gone. But this has just been in the fridge for a few days. Also, the steaks were touching. They were stacked on top of each other. When beef touches, it turns dark. But yeah, this is going to be a pretty big pot of chili. Normally, the box that I use calls for 3 pounds total. 2 pounds of beef, 1 pound of breakfast sausage. That's another reason I like this seasoning. They actually are almost spot on with how I've always made my chili anyway. But if you guys follow this recipe and end up winning any chili cook-offs or anything with it, the very least you could do would be to like and subscribe. With the pepper, just kind of add it to taste. Most of this stuff is all going to be just do it how you like it, man. I mean, nothing is... some people take cooking way too seriously, and it's like you're not building a house and or doing any kind of chemistry or rocket science. Just kind of add and take away stuff as you like, you know. Not every recipe has to be followed to the T. That's, to me, kind of the fun of cooking. I have people come in the store all the time that You know, little old ladies too. It's like you're somebody's grandma and you don't even really know how to cook. Like little old ladies that like they'll ask for a pound of hamburger meat and it'll be like 1.05 and they'll be like, oh, that's over. That's gonna mess up my recipe. Like, no, it's not, Grandma. Just add another dash of salt and you'll be fine. But yeah, I can't stress that enough. You know, make it your own. Add and take away what you like. The main core of it is just, you know, 3 pounds of meat, the seasoning you like. Tomatoes are definitely kind of in some way, shape, form, or fashion, whether it be diced, sauce, paste. That's what's going to give it a texture and a thickness. If you don't use anything like that, then it's going to be watery and it's going to be more like soup rather than chili. Which you might like that. Again, it's your chili. Make it how you want. But pretty much 15, 20 minutes browning. Probably not even that long. Browning the hamburger meat. Add all your ingredients once they all simmer up good. You could really get a pot of chili done within 45 to an hour. But the longer you let it simmer, the better. The flavors are going to meld together. Just like anything like this, soups or roast or anything like that, the next day they're always better. The longer it sits, the more it really derives all that flavor out of it. But that's pretty much it. That's how I make my chili. I'll whenever I post this video, I'll add a picture for the thumbnail of like the finished product and what it's gonna look like. But that's how we do it in Texas anyway. Thanks. Peace.